My name is Stephanie Hennis. I'm going to be speaking about Jeff Sessions' nomination to be the Attorney General of the United States. And I saw that Senator Van Hollen had already issued a statement saying that he opposed this nomination. And I was pleased to see that his statement did involve people with disabilities and the way that Senator Sessions has spoken about people with disabilities, because this person right here is my brother. His name is Ralph Hennis. He's about 30 years old now. He is an adult with a disability. This is actually my other brother and Ralph at his graduation party. We didn't know that Ralph had any sort of disability when he was first born. Somewhere around 2 years old, my mom didn't seem to think that he was developing quite right. He was tested, and at that point, they determined that he had some sort of developmental disability. It didn't really get a specific diagnosis, but it became apparent that he was going to need special services. Eventually, we realized that he had autism and a fairly severe form of mental retardation. I know that people don't like to use that term now, but I feel like for someone like my brother who is incapable of living independently, it really does show that while there's so much power to be had for people who have disabilities and education is important, there are still people who are going to rely on services in order to live a productive life. So Ralph initially went to a special education preschool in our town. Eventually, he was put in an out-of-district placement. All of which means it was the school system paid for it, but he was not in our traditional public school system within our town. I ended up reading the comments that Senator Sessions made, his floor statement in 2000 about the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and I don't think I can find someone who is more detached from what people with disabilities actually go through in the public school system. Ralph couldn't speak. Ralph couldn't hold a pencil. Ralph he couldn't cope with anything. He would sit and cover his ears and just go, no, no. His schooling helped him to not be like that. He can write. If I had more time, I would have brought a card. I had one in my office previously that he sends me Valentines. He lives in Connecticut. He sends me Valentines. He sends me cards for my birthday. He's capable of writing his name. He's also capable of writing numbers. The significance of this picture of him standing, this was when Macy's was celebrating their 150th anniversary. It's the Macy's in Metro Center. He was so excited to see this. And for someone with his type of disability, these numbers bring him incredible satisfaction. He loves game shows. He can sit at home and he can write those numbers and he can talk about them and he can write his name and he can write things and explain to us what he's feeling in his own way. And that matters. And so these comments here talking about, first of all, he seems to be of the belief that IDEA is only meant for people who have physical disabilities. And while it is meant to help people with physical disabilities, my brother's disability is not or whatever. It is a disability that he is deserving of a public education because of that. He then goes on to list people with disabilities in the public school systems as an irritating problem. He actually went on to quote a teacher who said that she could not remember hearing of a gun shooting prior to 1975 when Congress began letting 10% of students not be responsible for their actions. 1975 is the year that Congress passed IDEA. The notion that the problems in schools relate to can all be traced back to people like my brother is highly disturbing. There's a lot of talk in there about personal responsibility, and people love to talk about personal responsibility. But you know what? People who have disabilities aren't in control in some instances of the way that they express themselves. My brother is a very kind-hearted and loving person, and he goes to a day program now, and the people who work there love him. That being said, he can't, because his verbal skills are limited, he has a hard time expressing himself. He can become abusive toward himself. He can become abusive towards somebody else if they aren't understanding how to interact with him. And so the problem here isn't the people with disabilities. The problem is that they aren't getting the services that they need and deserve. Because Sessions would be the Attorney General, I just wanted to point out how this plays out in real life. The Supreme Court just heard a case dealing with the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and it had to do with what amount of progress students are entitled to get under IDEA. And what I really wanted to focus on was just the fact that the Justice Department weighed in that case and filed an amicus brief, and they pushed for a standard of significant educational progress. The state in that case is pushing for basically like above trivial progress. People who make comments like this argue for, oh, we just need to babysit them and that meets the requirements. That is not what should be going on in our Justice Department. And I apologize if I got really heated. This is obviously not directed specifically at Senator Van Hollen, and I am so pleased, that he did identify this issue in his statement. So thank you very much.